So just to kind of go along with the theme, Wake Up the Wonder, we wanted to do this thing where you basically wake up with elevation worship. So we started this morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, and at the top of every hour we've been doing one song from the album live, and also just been talking about, how to find the album, the resources that we offer, and sort of giving some behind-the-scenes look at some of the people who were instrumental in, creating the live concert film, which is our DVD, and some of the short films that go along with this project, and then people, of course, who are instrumental in making the album. So, it's been a lot of fun.
Well, I have to tell you, this morning I woke up, sat up in my bed with the pillow under my head, and woke up to, elevation worship. You were in my inbox, like I'm sure you were with many others, and then I clicked over from the email that was sent out, and it took me to this video. I guess you guys have a few trailer videos, and so, I'm sitting there in my bed with my light on and all comfy. I had my coffee in hand, and I was watching the video, and I was seriously quite stunned at how awesome it is. You guys have just done an amazing job. This is, a serious work of art. Even, like, the video is great, but just the, in the stadium there where you guys were doing your worship, I guess it was the live worship of this album. But I just love the graphics behind your band, and it just, and the way the lights and then the people is just incredibly worshipful, but at the same time a real artistic expression, and music as well. So a real spirit of worship there. So.
Well,
anyways, go ahead.
We're just super blessed to have a lot of really talented people in our creative team, our production team, our tech team, and then also the worship team. It's just pretty awesome to see, like, all the people that God brought to Elevation to sort of, like, make all of this fun, creative stuff happen.
Yeah. How many people, if you can imagine or just guess, how many people do you think were involved in putting this project on, like end to end, from the guy behind the camera to the guy leading worship? What do you think? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I mean, I would say a rough guess, like at least 40 to 50 people. But if you also want to go as far as, like, even extras that we use, like, for our short films, and people like helping scout locations, because we shot some of those short films outside of Charlotte, and so people helping us scout locations, like using extras, in the scenes, all of that. I mean, if you want to count all of those people, then probably, close towards 100 or something.
100.
I mean, take it a step further than that, and you get everybody that was involved in the night, actually at the arena, and greeting and ushering people, stage hands, riggers for all the PA, all of that. I mean, you're talking about more than that. So crazy.
It's a real story of, like, how the whole body of Christ comes together. Everybody's got their little gift, and the guy that's working behind the scenes is important, just like the team on the stage and the lights, and it just gels together. And so clearly I haven't seen all that has gone in. I just watched a couple of videos. That I watched a few acoustic presentations of some of the songs, and then there was a few videos from the stadium thing. But then you have other short films, and why don't you give me a sense of, like, what's the media vision that you guys have unfolded here with this whole album? What is the breadth of what you've wanted to present, at least from a media level anyways, from a video, from allowing people to take it in at all different levels? What do you all have?
Well, so, gosh, that's such a big question.
I'm sorry.
Let me just no, it's fine. I'm just going to try to dive in somewhere. So when Pastor Stephen was throwing around this this concept of like, what if we name the album Wake Up the Wonder? He's been, one of the past series that we've been in, he's been preaching for our church this past summer. He's been talking a lot about the life of Jacob and just kind of like tying in with the story of where Jacob, sees like the stairway to heaven, that whole story. It sounds silly talking about this Bible story, but so basically, like, surely the Lord is in this place is what he says, and so basically, like, the idea of like waking up the wonder is just like being awoken to like God's wonder and his presence like all around us, and that we don't have to just be at church, we don't have to just be in like a church building for like God's presence. Oh my goodness, I'm looking at the photo that you have of me and Brad at the top of this webinar, and it is horrible.
Oh, is it? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, move to another one.
That picture, no, I'm just laughing. That picture is literally my first weekend leading at Elevation 6 years ago. Amazing.
Okay.
So thanks for that.
Well, we just worked with what we were sent, I mean, I think it looks beautiful, so sorry. Brad, what do you think?
No, it's
picture
fine.
of London?
It's always a great picture.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like Brad just pulled it up, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is that picture? Sorry. Okay, so back to what I was saying. So basically, it's this idea that like you don't have to be, at church like for you to be aware of God's presence, and so like kind of anywhere you are like taking the wonder and taking the presence of God like with you as a believer, because he lives inside of us, and so. So for us, just tackling this concept of Wake Up the Wonder was really exciting and really challenging, like all at the same time. So just from every aspect of what we're doing, from like the album artwork, from all the visuals, from the night of, to the actual like songs and the actual audio experience, just trying to like have this cohesive experience of what it means to wake up the wonder of God, like inside us and all around us, and just be aware that his presence is always with us.
What do you see? We're just looking at the album cover there, and I love the graphical, work that you did with that. What do you see when you look at that fire in the box? Is there something behind it? Is there a message? Brad, why don't you tell us what do you see when you look at that?
One great thing we have on the DVD is kind of a documentary that is kind of a bonus feature to the concert film that kind of goes in depth and kind of goes to each of the departments that had a hand in just in this record and helping it put it out from a graphical perspective to the filming and how we did a lot of stuff. And one of the things our teams did was we kind of prided ourselves in we created this, like physically built a plexiglass box and lit it on fire. And kind of the heart behind it was just having like a fire burn where it wasn't possible. And that's just kind of, what...
basically, like the idea that, like, fire can't exist in the glass box, so it obviously has to have some sort of supernatural, like, presence there with it.
Yeah.
And so just kind of like that idea of, like, the supernatural presence of God, like, waking that up inside
I love that we, said, we could Photoshop it if we wanted to, but that wouldn't be like super special, and we could, finish this and say we didn't really accomplish anything, and then our teams to go and to actually do that and actually take a picture, and it was actually in a parking lot as well. So
so that box you're looking at right now is like literally a glass box set on fire in a parking lot.
Yeah. But I love that fire existing where, it couldn't exist without some supernatural source. So, which probably happened to be gasoline in your case or something like that.
Brad and I did not have the pleasure of being present for that, but I can imagine there were a few like starter logs or something.
Yeah. Well, still,
it's great. It's great to see this album artwork is really a representation of what happened the night that we captured all of these songs. I like to say, like, the last couple of albums that we've done, I love that we haven't created an album, but we've captured an album. We've captured not just like the songs that got us, birthed through the worship leaders and everybody who's had a hand in writing. And, of course, Pastor Stephen's done a ton of writing on this record. He's probably had a hand in every song. And just really challenged our team to go, to a deeper level, lyrically and melodically, and really just challenged us from in every area. But then to see our whole church under one roof, worshiping together was just a powerful, just a tangible presence of God that we could all feel as kind of one church under one roof, which, we're at 12 locations now, and, it's a really powerful thing week in and week out that we get to be a part of, but it was something special to get everybody under one roof praising, and it really... something shifted in the room. There were several moments where it was just like would just kind of overtake you, and you just totally get lost in the worship moment. And I love that the DVD captures. When I watch it, I feel like I'm there again.
Yeah, totally.
Which was an incredible thing for our creative team to be able to recapture that moment for everyone.
I remember when I was watching this morning, I was watching a trailer, and it was a thing with, it was like you were in outer space, but I don't know if it was real space or some, like planets are going all around and lights and things, and I really found myself thinking, wow, like what a massive, amazing creator that we have. I would love to have a tour. Someday I'd love for God to give me this total space tour of here's all the stuff you never saw that I did, just, as an expression of my glory and wonder. I think, I'm sure that's why you guys made that video, is to express that sense of, so I just loved it. Tell me a little bit about that, because I think you must have, how did you make that, or how did that come together? It's a beautiful piece.
Thank you. So one theme that I've just been kind of seeing in our creative teams, I guess, the last year. So obviously our video teams are just incredibly talented, and our lead videographer is Jared Hogan, and so he led his team so well to make these films. And earlier this year for Easter, the video team produced a film called The Force of Grace, and we used it in our Easter worship experiences. And just the coolest thing about that I felt like translated was that, like, God's grace, His love, His wonders, it all kind of just, it's really cool to see how God, like, works, like, from Easter, then to this night of worship. It's just kind of cool how, like, we aren't even necessarily trying to make it cohesive, but, like, God keeps bringing back these cohesive themes for us, so it's pretty cool to see that. But basically, the Force of Grace was sort of just this idea that, like, His wonders, His grace, His love, His mercy, like, they're not just, like, these enormous things. Like, it's not just space and planets and, like, thunder and lightning and all of these, like, crazy, huge wonders of God, but they're also, like, the small things, too. They're, like, baby's first breath. It's, like, the smallest little, touching of two hands, or the tiniest drop of water into a larger body of water. Like, I don't know, it's just kind of cool if you see some of the films our video team has done. They've just done a great job in capturing kind of, like, the most minuscule and then the most, like, ginormous, if that's a word, wonders of God. And so I guess for us, just tackling this theme, Wake Up the Wonder, I was one of those people who got to direct the opener for the experience that we had that night, and super an honor for me to, to get to work on that project, to sort of like how do we set the tone for the evening, because obviously we want we want to set like a really good tone and really want to set the atmosphere for this idea of Wake Up the Wonder. So for me and for the team, it was just like thinking, well, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to like wake up God's wonder? And so we really went for a like almost a weather motif for that. So it was a lot about lightning and thunder and rain and wind, and just like these kind of huge weather theme, where it's just, I don't know, it's so obvious that it's, it's just like a wonder of the Lord. Obviously, weather is like so big and can be so scary, and so gorgeous, beautiful, of course. But so yeah, just setting the right tone of the night was super important for us. And one thing that we thought about was, if we're in an arena with, 13,000, 14,000 people, and you've got people sitting up really high in the arena, how are they going to feel really close and really a part of this with just a few screens? And I know obviously in an arena, I think you can see now like some of the shots if you're looking at like the webinar page. But like obviously those screens on either side of the stage, like they're big in relation to like probably one of the screens at our church, but they're not big in, like in relation to the size of that arena. They're not really that big. And so we're thinking like, how can we translate this idea of how big his wonders are to the person sitting at the very top of the room? And so I think we figured out that really it was going to have to be an audio experience and in lighting. So like how do we reach them with like the sound, and how do we reach them with like the lighting, so that we make sure that it doesn't all hinge upon like what they're seeing visually on those tiny screens. Because it's obviously, like I said, if you're sitting up tall, those screens not as tiny. But so it was like kind of like crashing of lightning and thunder and a lot of really awesome lighting, and so it was really fun to set the tone for the experience.
Well, you guys came today, this morning, and we were wanting to talk about building a worship culture in the outreaching church. That was a phrase that you had given us. So I want to, invite you, and I know there's people I'm seeing on the chat side. They're very eager to learn and discuss and grow in this area. I'm sure some people might even feel quite overwhelmed looking at your massive expression of media and music and lights, and they're thinking, okay, my church is 75 people meeting in the second floor of a hotel, and I also want to build a worship culture in the outreaching church. So we want to talk in a way that can encourage really the full breadth of the expression of the church. So tell us, and I'd love to hear from both of you. Maybe Brad, you can share to start a little bit. What's on your heart as a church as far as being an outreaching church, but not just a performance-oriented, massive media machine? You guys want to build a worship culture. What can you share with us from your heart there?
Sure. Our church is only 8 years old. We're still very young. We're still learning a lot. We're through every series, through every every season that we go through as a church, we're still learning what God has called us specifically to do. And I feel like one of the greatest things, I've been on staff for 3 years now. I've been a part of the church for almost 5. London's been here quite a bit longer than me. But I know the church started. It started small. It started with 8 families with a passion to reach a city for God, and just I don't know, they were just on fire and just felt a calling to do this. And then our leader, Pastor Stephen Furtick, he God's just given him a vision for this, and he is such an incredible communicator, and he knows that God has called him not just to reach a small number of people, like to really reach as many people as possible. He's we're in this series now called Surround, and week one of this series a few weeks back, we looked at a video. I think you can probably see it on Pastor's webpage, but just a video of a look back at some of the promises that God was given to our church. So basically, God would give Pastor a vision that there were going to be 1,000 people at a certain event, at Christmas or whatever. And, at that point, the church is just, a handful of people sitting around in a circle. So it's like, how do you even, wrap your mind around it, let alone believe it, and then to see it come to pass and see God blessed. It's like God gave the vision to Pastor Stephen. Pastor Stephen had the boldness to say it, and even though everybody around him was like, we're in this, we're all in with this vision. I don't see how it's going to happen, but let's see what God does, and then to see him actually do that, and then you fast forward to 2010, where just a couple of years before that, Pastor had said, I believe God's called us to reach 10,000 people in our city by Easter 2010. And everybody was like, are you nuts? Like, this is like, why do we set these goals? They're like unattainable. And then to see God do that in 2010, Easter, with our first time being at Time Warner Arena, and just so many people showing up and seeing our church under one roof for pretty much the first time. So I don't know. I feel like our church is just a testimony that a small group of people can make an incredible impact when they're obedient, and when God tells us to do something, even if it seems crazy. We've always been one to just say, God, we'll do what you ask us to do.
And I think you're so right when you say that, like, it can seem overwhelming if you are that small church, if you're just getting started, or maybe you've been at it for a few years and you're just believing for big things. I can see how that would, to look at our church and the hand of favor that the Lord has blessed us with and all of that, it can seem like super overwhelming. Our pastor he's just done a really good job at modeling and challenging us with kind of two specific core principles, I guess, to us that I'll tell you just to sort of illustrate my point. The first one being that, like, we act in audacious faith. Right. So, like, we believe that God can do the impossible. So, like, we aren't afraid to pray for really huge things. We aren't afraid to believe that, like, God will step in and do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine. But then also we couple that with another core value is we call it think inside the box. And it's basically about how we embrace our limitations. So, like, when I first came on staff, we were just a couple of really small, portable locations where we met in schools, and, had to get there super early in the morning on Sunday to set up. When I say think inside the box, like, we couldn't even begin to think about pulling off some of the creative elements that we pull off now, or doing some of the things that we can pull off now that we have some permanent facilities. So we had to think inside the box and say, like, how can we pull off something great within the constraints of, like, what we have to work with, Yeah. So, like, our budget was smaller, our locations were portable. They, we, like I said, we had to set them all up that morning and tear them all down after the worship experiences were over. So it was kind of just like, I feel like, at least for me personally, it was just this, like, really special combination of just kind of believing that God can do the impossible, but then also being very realistic about what we have to work with, and still just trying to bring excellence in everything that we could within our limitations. And I feel like God would just continue to sort of, like, stretch the walls of that box until eventually, we have now a few permanent facilities where we can pull off a lot more cool stuff. But we still, like Brad said, we have 12 locations. Only 3 of those 12 are permanent facilities.
Right.
So what does that leave, 9? That really gives simple math. So that leaves 9, portable type locations that we have to set up in the morning and tear down. For instance, we're in a YMCA gymnasium for one of our locations, and it's like, man, what can we do to cover up this basketball floor?
Yeah.
Make it feel like a church, So we definitely we have been there, and at the same time, we don't want to ever lose sight of like where we came from. And I think sort of this portable campus model will always be with us as we're maybe entering into new cities or new parts of our city or whatnot. So hope that answered that.
No, it's good. And I'm really encouraged to hear how your perspective that, your church is being 12 campuses. It's not like you're one massive stadium church every Sunday morning. That, you've got a lot of campuses that are still at the same, in a very similar place as many people listening in. That,
exactly.
And so you're always having to dream and I also love that think inside the box. I have never heard that. I always hear think outside the box.
Right.
So that really stirs something in me, like that blend of let's be realistic, but let's also be full of faith. That's an interesting balance. So let's keep talking about. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, our pastor is such an inspiring leader. We're so blessed to have him. He's super creative himself, but he just like finds these phrases that are like super inspiring, and you're like, where did you come up with that?
Yeah.
We're pretty blessed to have him as a leader, but we also, as much as we can, like love to help share that with others if it can help them and help their ministry. Because obviously we're not just focused on Elevation Church; we're focused on like the Big C Church. So
yeah. Can we talk a little more about just the phrase, the word outreaching church? Tell us a little more about what do you mean by that? What does an outreaching church look like? Like, isn't every church an outreaching church, or is there something really specific that you're trying to, bring to your city through your church in that sense?
Sorry, just to clarify, where are you seeing that? Is that like in a description or something? I actually haven't really heard us say that. Maybe I missed it.
It was just the title of our webinar that we got from you. So, it was building a worship culture in the outreaching church. So, and I'm sorry, maybe someone else fabricated that, so. Sorry,
someone may have written that.
All right.
They thought that might have been a good description. Not that it's a bad description at all. I guess I just wanted to make sure that I was knowing what you were talking about. Well, I mean, I don't know that this is necessarily what you're talking about, but our church is, of course, I know like many other churches, we're big into outreach. So we have like a lot of outreach partners that we work with. I don't know that that's what you're referring to, but
well, that's okay. Brad, go for it. If you have a spin on that. I'm just trying. I'm kind of watching the chat a little bit, and I know people are eager to learn and grow, and some people are asking, so what do you mean by this? How can I grow?
I saw that too. Basically, kind of what Lennon was talking about. We have outreach partners, so we don't necessarily like through the church, like one-on-one, like help, whatever. We strategically, basically because we don't know how to do it well, so we have strategic outreach partners. So we partner with, organizations called Samaritan's Purse, which is a global outreach partner. We have 1-7, which is one of our local outreach partners that gives homes to kids that are in need, and we give to just a ton of organizations that do it really well in our city, and we want to just take and resource them. So 12% of everything that comes into the church goes back out into outreach. It always has from day one to now, and it forever will be.
It's kind of like the church's tithe almost. So it started out, I believe it started out as 10%. So like everything that came into the church, 10% of that would go back out to our outreach partners to help our city, to help any, and as we got bigger, we got national and global outreach partners as well. And then we upped that number to 12%, I think a few years back.
Right.
But basically, like what Brad was saying, we just don't really feel like we're the expert in like creating these organizations to do outreach. So we feel like the best way for us is to partner with organizations that already exist.
Right.
Yeah.
And resource them to do what they're great at. And so kind of like partnering with them rather than us just having a bunch of like nonprofit ministry organizations that like we manage.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I think possibly what the outreaching church though is talking about is sorry, that was a little side note on how we give back to the community. I want to say maybe what it's referring to as the outreaching church is just that we want to be a resource to other churches who need maybe their worship team consists of one singer and one acoustic guitar, or like one piano player, one vocalist, So from like the smallest worship team to like the largest worship team, we always want to be resourcing them the best that we can through what God is doing here at Elevation. And so you mentioned earlier that you've seen some of our acoustic videos. That's one of the reasons that every year we try to make it a priority to make things like acoustic videos so that we can say, okay, it can be overwhelming if your worship team consists of 3 people, a piano, a guitar, and a singer. It's going to be very overwhelming to see, like, us worshiping at an arena. Like, how does that translate to what we're doing to our small group or to our church or whatever? So the acoustic video is hopefully a way that you can see a more stripped-down version of, like, this is what it would sound like with just a few instruments. And you can still feel the power in the song, and it can still translate just as well. And that kind of goes back to the concept of thinking inside the box, just like embracing what you have and making the most of it.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, so now I'm getting some dialogue. It's really great with these live webinars because it's very much a conversation as I'm listening to people who are listening and and dialoguing with you. And I'm sensing that let's talk a little bit about the worship culture side of things, because definitely Elevation is building that, and it really seems to flow out of your leadership, your pastor, and all of that. How do you build that kind of worship culture in a church? I think that's what probably a lot of churches want to emulate or want to feel like they have. Well, you come to our church and it's like there's a culture of fire, worship. And is there anything even really practical, tangible? Some people are even saying, give me a couple of points that I can just like grab onto. We want to be a church that's reaching out, but want to have that culture of worship. Right.
So this is from the top down. So we have a worshiper as a pastor, a worshiper as our leader, and then basically we are just on a system of empowerment. So pastor has empowered our worship pastor, Wade Joy, to lead our entire worship department. He in turn has empowered each of us as worship leaders to lead our campuses. So, and then we feel empowered at our campuses to lead, our bands and our vocalists and just kind of and lead that room. But it all just flows, from the top down. Like some of the language that we use is like really, really important. Carrying, core values down. It's culture is a hard thing to build, especially as you get bigger and you spread out more and more and more. Keeping the integrity of the first time that you hear something, you've seen that when you get a group of people around and you say a sentence and then it goes down and it passes to the next person, and after you get so far down the line, that sentence changes a little bit. So we've been really intentional trying not to let that happen, to try to keep the integrity, keep consistency across all of our locations. We want you to be able to come to our Blakeney location, and even though that's our broadcast location where pastors live, spend a little bit more money on the staging and that kind of stuff. But then you go to our Matthews location, we want an identical experience. So we create it, from a leadership standpoint through empowerment, but we also practically we do the same songs at every location. Not only do we do the same songs, we do the same formats of every song. We have simulcast technology where we call it point to point, and we link all of our churches together. And at a certain point, like usually the song right before pastor comes up to preach his sermon, we want to give him, like I said earlier, he's a worshiper. When the church first started, at least for the first year, he led worship, then preached a sermon. So so he has that in him, and he's probably the best worship leader on staff. and he can just carry a moment for our entire church. So we wanted to kind of build a culture for him to be able to take a worship moment before he preaches, so that he can kind of set the room to be able to receive the message that God's given him for the week. So usually the song right before pastor preaches, we call it our point-to-point song. So all locations can, basically our drummers flip a switch and we all play to the click that is coming from our Blakeney location. So one drummer fires a click at Blakeney, we all take it, we're all playing live, and then we send the worship leader's microphone that's at the broadcast location to everywhere. And so that one worship leader, so for instance, this weekend, Chris Brown was able to sing into a microphone, pipe to every location. Every band is playing live to the same click. We sing a song, and then pastor's able to come up, and we went in and out of singing, the tag several times. So being able to give that moment to our pastor has been huge for our church, bringing us together with a church that's so structured, and we're highly programmed, and we program everything, down to the second. That is a moment where we can say God can do anything in this moment. Yeah. So it makes a church that's extremely programmed have flow in it as well, and allow the Spirit to move. So it's been incredible.
When I'm listening to you, I think you might agree with me that the answer to culture is not, programming everything down to its, microsecond. That's right. An expression. I can see how that works for you, but the heart behind it is you're trying to fan the flame of what your pastor needs in order to use his unique gift and, flow that out to your church within your box, which obviously is a different size than other boxes. But but the heart, I think what I'm hearing that is a translatable, principle is you are very intentional about what you do. Regardless of the thing that you're deciding to do, you're intentional about it, about building a culture that, it's almost like a wave that shakes out into all your campuses, and everyone's feeling that same pulse, and there's a community and unity from that. So
our pastor has set a very celebratory worship tone since day one. Always wanting our experiences to come out of the gate just very celebratory, entering his gates with thanksgiving and praise. And so that's been just kind of, really important to us, and sort of a model that we've, tried to stick with the best that we can. And I think one big piece to the worship culture here, one reason I think it works and it's special, and I guess just as an encouragement and maybe a challenge to other worship leaders, is just sort of the working relationship with worship leader and pastor can be, not every worship leader is going to be blessed with a pastor that puts such a high priority on worship, who's an actual worship leader himself. You know what I mean? And just embodies worship and values it as much as our pastor. But at the same time, if the Lord's called you to that church and to that vision, I think just the most important thing that we found is just submitting to your leadership and being submitted to your leadership will allow just that working relationship. The Lord can do so much through a unified worship leader, worship pastor, and pastor, rather than a worship leader who kind of has their own agenda. So that has just sort of been something that Wade, our worship pastor, has always challenged us in so well. It's not about our own agenda. It's not about what we want as what we prefer or our preferences as the worship leaders, but what's the best thing for the experience, and what's the best way to create the right atmosphere for our pastor to get up and then preach God's word. And once, getting into that rhythm, it's been incredible to see how the Lord can work through that unity.
Yeah. I really, really see that. I want to talk a little more about that relationship from a worship pastor to a pastor, because I know in many cases it can be a tense relationship. Maybe some people are listening thinking, man, I don't know if we've got that guy, and they're starting to doubt their pastor. Maybe can we talk about what can some of these worship pastors do if they're thinking, I want to improve my relationship with my senior pastor? What are some tangible things, some practical things that a worship pastor could do? Because probably we don't have a lot of senior pastors listening. Mostly we have worship pastors, and they're either super excited or super stressed because they're like, I don't have that guy. I don't have the guy you have. We got to somehow encourage them, speak to them. What can you help us with? Yeah.
Well, let me just start off by saying that I feel so blessed to be under the leadership of Pastor Stephen. But just in reality, to be super transparent and honest, I think it's like a grass is always greener on the other side kind of thing.
Yeah.
So listening to that, it might be oh man, I would give anything for that. But there's also things that come along with a pastor who is a worshiper first and is very opinionated about worship and has so you know what I'm saying? And so there's always both sides, and I think the Lord has just brought the right personalities and the right people to this team. He just assembled our team so well. Our worship pastor is Wade is just one of the most humble people that you will ever work with. And so I think it takes a spirit, just such a humble spirit like Wade, to work so closely with a pastor who is so passionate about worship and so opinionated about worship. So what I would say is kind of see it from both sides and sort of try to see I guess the goodness in your situation. You may have a pastor that maybe doesn't know anything about music or isn't very passionate about worship, that's just really an opportunity to come up like under his leadership and like build a culture of worship that God has placed, in your heart as the worship pastor in your church. As long as it's coming up under the vision of your pastor, and as long as he's on board with kind of where you're going to be taking the team, then that's kind of an exciting thing too, to like break new ground in your church, and to sort of be like the leader of that. So I mean, I obviously I'm still fairly young. I'm going to say I'm young. I'm going to say I'm really young, just to make myself feel better. Is that okay? So as a young worship leader, like, we don't have all the answers, but one thing that we've just learned is if you would submit your preference to your pastor, but at the same time bring your best effort to the table, then I think that you could find at least the start of a good working relationship. Right. I think a lot of times people get stuck in a place where they're like, well, my pastor just doesn't know anything about music, and he just doesn't care anything about music. So maybe it's kind of a discouraging mentality, like, I'm just not going to bring anything up because I don't want to keep getting shot down or whatever. But I would just say, like, take that to the Lord in prayer, pray for opportunities, and work really hard to, like, plan some creative and some cool stuff and present it in the best way that you can, and just pray that the Lord will spark something in that working relationship, So we firmly believe that God can move in the details and in the planning. So we're not afraid to plan months and months in advance for something, because we believe, obviously, God is outside of space and time. Like, He can be in that meeting with us, perfectly orchestrating exactly what needs to happen, even if it's months out. Right. And so we just put a lot of emphasis on, like you said, being intentional, and not afraid to plan and kind of set our teams up for success the best we can.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for sharing candidly, and thanks, London, for reminding us, it's not all green grass, even in your world. I mean, your pastor is still a person, right? He's a personality, he's got opinions, and there's still frustrations and all of that. It's still a real world. But what I do
and
obviously,
obviously I say that with the utmost respect. Like,
of course.
Yeah.
No, of course.
Just in a sense that, like, there's going to be challenges. You'll face challenges no matter what type of leadership that you're under,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So. No, that's really, really good. But I do think it's worth it to go after the very best, because whatever vibrates out, almost as I'm envisioning it, from that relationship, from the leadership of the church, it is going to have, an incredible impact on the whole congregation. It flows out, that culture. That's where it flows from, right? So I think it's worth pursuing after. And, well, we've got about 10 minutes left. I'm sorry we don't have a ton of time, but I want to look at the album just for a little bit and some of the songs. Let's not talk about all the songs, but maybe if you could think of 3 or 4 that you think, if there's any songs on this album that are going to be a real encouragement and a resource for churches beyond Elevation, what are the songs that are really burning in your heart? So I've got lyrics for all of them. If you guys could just pick a few. Maybe we could just start with The King is Among Us. Let's just start there, and then think of a couple more as we're talking, and just give us a little view of the songs that are on this album.
Yeah, great. This is one of my top 2 songs. Actually, my number 2 fave. But so I love that. That God has called me here, and what we get to see here is not normal, and we've seen God do amazing things just in every season of our church, as I've kind of said before. And so the opening of that song is kind of just a prayer, like, God, you've used us. Would you do it again? And then he's just, in every season, he's like, I'm not only going to use you. You're gonna see amazing things as I work through you, as I use you to build God's kingdom here in Charlotte and even outside of our city. And it's just a prayer for revival. Again, we want this, like the album cover, we want this fire to just burn bright, in us. So we know that what we're part of is not normal. It's a miracle that God uses us to, I don't know, just to bring families back together, to bring people from darkness to light, to introduce them to Jesus for the first time, or to bring them back to a God who's always loved them, but for whatever reason and whatever circumstances they've distanced themselves from God, and to see that relationship between their Creator restored. And so it's amazing that He uses us. He could have chosen anybody, and it's the same with any other worship leader that's listening. Like, if God's called you to lead worship, to be used by Him to build His kingdom, like, that is just something to never ever take for granted, and that's on any level. If you're at a startup church that's you're just doing preview services, you haven't even really launched yet, to maybe you're at a church that's been around for a long time. Doesn't matter where you're at. If God's called you to build His church and build His kingdom, it's a huge honor, and we never take it lightly or take it for granted.
Really good. I love the song. London, what's a song that's on the top of your heart from this album?
Gosh, it is so hard for me to choose a favorite. I'm like a little kid in a candy store when it comes to worship music, because I feel like just like for whatever day, like whatever I'm going through that day, it's like a different song, like a different flavor of ice cream. But I would say probably Jesus I Come.
Okay.
I would say Jesus I Come.
Oh, you picked the one I think that we didn't have the lyrics for. No, there was one song I was missing, and I'm sorry I don't. But you can still talk about it. That's totally fine.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But go tell us.
Well, Jesus I Come has really been like an anthem for our church this past year, and I just can't even describe how special it is when we've been singing it together with our church. And the bridge of the song, the lyrics are just, "Thank you, Jesus, just as I am, I come. Hallelujah, oh, what amazing love." And it's just the idea of like entering into His presence with like great, just like gratitude, that just as I am, baggage and all, like I can come before you, and I can thank you, I can praise you, I can worship at your feet. And so it's just something so powerful in the simplicity of that to me. So the night of the live album recording this past summer, during the bridge of this song, that moment, I think that we all kind of unanimously decided it was one of the most powerful moments of the evening.
Really?
Many of us on stage were moved to tears. I was like welling up, trying to not mess up my makeup. Sad that I have to think about that. But it's just one of those things where hearing the whole church together sing just such a simple but powerful phrase, "Thank you, Jesus, just as I am, I come." I don't know. There was just something incredibly special about it, and so we're just praying that other churches and congregations would have the same feeling towards the song, that they would I don't know, just have such a special feeling when they lead it for their congregation, and that people would just really grab hold of it and really get to experience the Lord through it.
It is amazing. Right before that bridge happens is kind of just like a down section, and it just the song kind of chills out for just a minute. But like our pastor has preached to our church, the last 6 months to a year, for a long time, but really the last 6 months to a year, like gratitude is never silent, and he's just kind of instilled that into our culture as a church. And then so we end the chorus and we hit this little chill moment in the song before we get big. Excuse me, before we got big into the bridge, and the church couldn't be silent in that moment. But we thought the arena was just going to be like just kind of a hush of kind of a quiet time, just a real reverent moment, and people just started out loud praising him and thanking him, and before we even sang it, they knew it was coming. It was like it was the most special
electric.
Yeah. Yes, electric.
Isn't it awesome when you hear the church voice? Like, I know whenever I've led worship, if all I can hear is our band and monitors, I'm sometimes, that's the thing I don't like about in-ear monitors, is if I can't hear the church singing, I don't want to hear myself. I want to hear the church erupt and, hear those voices. So
I know.
That's really
why you got to get those in-ears with those ambient ports.
That's right.
Okay, I hear you. Plug for that. Okay, one more song. So, Brad, what's the second song that you wanted to bring, or was it that one? Maybe it was, but is there one
it actually
more?
was that. That was my number one. Was Jesus Forever. King is Among Us. Number two, man. Your Promises is probably it's number three or close thereabouts.
Okay.
So for a number of reasons. I mean, obviously, like the chorus says, doesn't matter what I feel, doesn't matter what I see, my hope will always be in your promises to me. So I don't know, just I kind of live in this constant state of just reminding myself of the promises of God. Like practical life hits you, even working, in our worship department. London works a lot on the creative side of things. I work alongside of her with a lot of the vocal stuff, doing clicks and loops and all that. Like, we have a lot of stuff on our plate, through the week, and we can kind of get bogged down in the task. And it can get really overwhelming, especially in seasons like this, because we're getting ready for for Christmas, and we're finishing up elements to Christmas like this week, and so we're just swamped as we can be, and to kind of take a step back and no matter like what our families may be like strained in this time or whatever, just so thankful that they're so supportive and that they come alongside of us and are just as much a part of this church as we are, and just living. I mean, we just live in a constant state of just reminding ourselves of the promises of God, no matter what we see around us, no matter what storm or trial or anything that we're going through, that He's promised us that He'll always be there, that He'll never leave us, and that He's always been there. And we just kind of we're praying for just like a greater awareness of His presence around us. So that's one of my favorites. And practically, the guy who sings it, his name is John Sal Barrientos. He came through our Prodigy program, which is a 6-month apprenticeship program, where he felt called to the Charlotte area, came in for 6 months, sat under the culture and leadership of our worship department, and I just had the privilege to work with him a lot, one-on-one vocally and leading and all of that, and then to see him actually get the opportunity to lead our church in worship was, I don't know, I was just really cheering him on in that moment. It was really, really
awesome.
Great.
Well, I can't help but say, just to bring out one more song, since we're moving into Christmas, And it seems like the song "Let Us Adore" probably has the easiest transition into the season we're going into.
Yeah.
Is this a song you guys will be singing through the Christmas season a little bit, or it's got that kind of?
Times.
I am guessing so. We actually introduced this song last Christmas to our church.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm guessing we will do it again this year. We actually have 2 separate Christmas experiences that we're doing, so I'm sure it'll make it into one of them.
Yeah. Well, it's very, very singable, and I really feel like it's a song that can be sung at any time of the year. But obviously, in the chorus, it has, that kind of picture and a bit of a lean to the classic carol of "O Come All Ye Faithful."
Yes.
But
it's such a beautiful
expression.
song. Yeah, it's such a beautiful song, and like you said, I really think that no matter what size church you are, or worship team, you can pull this song off. Like it could be literally an acoustic and like a shaker or something, and or a piano or whatever you have available to you. I think the melody is so pretty, it sort of can carry itself. So we're just
really
hoping
good.
that it will bless people a lot this Christmas.
Well, we need to bring things to a close. You guys are at the top of another hour now, so an incredibly full day. I know that you have, and we have. We've recorded this whole time together, so we'll make that available hopefully by the end of today or tomorrow. We're streaming your album on PraiseCharts. We've actually done lead sheets and chord charts and all of that for all the songs on your album. I'm sure we'll be orchestrating several of them. We have a lot of people at PraiseCharts that actually use a full suite of orchestral instruments every week in a modern worship setting, and we've done a lot of those elevation songs from past albums. So that's going to be an encouragement, because I'm always inspired by, like, let everything that has breath, all the trumpets, saxes, clarinets, flutes. Can you imagine just filling the house? That's why I do what I do with PraiseCharts. So Brad, can I just invite you to close us in prayer? Would you pray for all the people listening, just that they'd be encouraged as worship leaders, relationships with their pastors, and just developing a culture of worship in their church? I just want to invite you to do that, and we'll close it from there. Okay.
Absolutely. God, thank you so much for the calling that you placed on our lives. God, I pray that with everyone that's listening, God, that you would, supernaturally just come into us and just raise our awareness that you're always close, that you're closer than a brother, and that and we would just pray that that you lead and guide in every decision that we would make, God, that we wouldn't take the calling on our lives lightly, that we would obey your every calling. And God, I pray for every relationship between a worship leader and a pastor, God, that you would strengthen that relationship, that you that you would just guide that leadership, and that every every relationship, every decision that's made, God, that would just look to you for all of that. So God, I pray for those that are wanting to build a great worship culture, God. It's all it all comes from you. The vision comes from you. And it's our job to just be obedient to that. So God, I pray that you would build the cultures that you want, and that it wouldn't be just looking at another church and saying, I want that culture, because you've called every church and every ministry and every worship leader, every pastor to their own calling. You've given them their ministry, and God, we can mimic like what we see all day long, and God, it can I don't know, it can not really do much. But God, if we'll live in the calling that you've called us, and that we mimic the faith, that's when the power will happen. So God, each week I pray that you put power behind the songs that we lead and the songs that we sing, God, that we would play and sing in our own strength, but you'd put your power behind it, and that you would do supernaturally what only you can do, and that's mend broken hearts, and you would mend families and bring people from darkness to light, God. So we pray as we go forward, less of us, more of you. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Well, thank you, Brad and London. You guys have been a really great encouragement. You've been real and practical and, and just encouraging. So thanks for that. We just bless you guys with your ministry. Yep. And I hope you have an incredibly fulfilling day as this album, spreads out all around the world. It's a great contribution to the worship music, that churches can share in. So we're glad to partner with you guys in that. And thanks for this time.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Take care.
Okay, we'll let you guys go. Bye then.
All right. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you to all of you who stuck around, and hope you were really encouraged. I know I saw a number of questions coming in, and I wasn't quite able to get to all of them, but I think we were able to press in at the heart of, talking about the pastor and worship leader relationship and how important that is, and building a culture, empowering people. So I do hope that you were encouraged and inspired and were able to take a few points away. Again, we do have this webinar will be live, it will be not live, it will be recorded, and it'll be available that you can watch it on YouTube by this afternoon or tomorrow at the link PraiseCharts.com/wake-up-webinar. So there you go. And as far as my voice, the next time you will be hearing me is in the new year. We already have some great webinars planned for January, but we're going to take December off, and only we're taking December off for the webinars. The site, PraiseCharts, just goes crazy during the month of December. There's so much music that is flowing out to churches all over the world. We've got hundreds and hundreds, even thousands of Christmas arrangements. Every style, every kind of song. We probably have 50 arrangements of Joy to the World and all the major carols, all different styles, instrumentals, rock, traditional, jazz, worshipful, everything that you can think of. I'm sure you can find it. And tons of contemporary expressions of worship. Hillsong was actually, I just had a message from Steve McPherson this morning. He was leaving me a voicemail about, Steve is the director of Hillsong at worship at Hillsong Church, and they just have a new Christmas single. I think it's called Light Has Come. So we'll be charting that, getting that available on the site. And, of course, last week, if you listened to the Aaron Schust webinar, it was really great. Aaron sat down at his grand piano. I think he must have been in his living room, and we just kind of played through all these songs that he had previously recorded with the Prague Symphony Orchestra. So it was a super, super kind of intimate feel, sitting around the piano and playing through some of the musicality of that whole song. So that album. So that was really great, and that you can listen to. Hundreds of people have already been listening to that this last week. So I hope you're encouraged by all of that, and thank you to all of you. And I will be signing off. And Happy New Year, and Merry Christmas, and we'll see you in the new year. God bless.